Hello there, welcome to my job and skill level guide for Dwarf Fortress. In this video, I'm going to explain what all these jobs are good for, how jobs work in general in this game, and how skill levels impact the outcome of the work of your dwarfs. So, first of all, let's talk about jobs in general. We have a color-coded system. As you notice, every job family has its own color, which gets associated to your dwarfs as well. Every dwarf has a associated job. That's only depicting which job they are best at, not which job they are currently doing. So all these things in the list behind their names are just giving you a indicator of what job they are going to be best at. But usually if they do the same job over and over again, the list will ultimately fit. If a dwarf is blinking like you see it here, that means they are legendary at their job, which is a good thing. Except for that, it's also worth mentioning that some jobs are a little bit special. There are three of them. That's the miners, the woodcutters, and the hunters. They are special because they require a tool to be done. The miners require a pick, the woodcutters a battle axe, hunters require a crossbow and bolts. Also, they are mutually exclusive. You cannot be a miner and a woodcutter at the same time because of the tool requirements. As a last thing, these three jobs are totally not compatible to be part of a military squad because those jobs somehow don't play nice with that. So now we know that basic stuff about jobs. Next thing on the list, let's talk about what these jobs do. Then we're going to cover skill levels and their impact. Most of these jobs are pretty self-explanatory. Many of them aren't. So I'm going to skim the ones that are self-explanatory and explain the ones that I personally found pretty esoteric. So carpentry, those are the people at the carpenter workshop. Crossbow making, well, goes without saying. Masonry is an odd one. Masons are obviously the people that build your wells, your workshops out of stone, your bridges, and not much besides that. They don't even get to build the walls because wall building and road building is a different job down here. So masons are something you are totally okay with forgetting. Stone carvers, they work at the stone workers shop. Stone cutters, smooth walls, and stone engravers, engrave walls. So far, so easy. The hunting related jobs are a little bit more esoteric. Animal trainers are easy to understand. Animal care, not so much. These are your veterinarians, so they're going to do medicine for your animals once that's implemented, which it ain't right now. And they also feed grazing animals, which are currently held in cages, but that's about it. Trapping goes without saying. Small animal dissection, those are the people that extract poisons out of snakes and the like. It's a pretty neglectable job as well. The doctors, I don't need to explain much about that. Every job explains itself quite decently. What's worth mentioning though is that suturing, dressing wounds, feeding patients and prisoners, and recovering the wounded are in the orderlies default setting. So the orderlies look like that by default, and they are a very important part of your setup. So important even that I've heard statements from players that without this setting, that only a few selected do this, their hospitals didn't work. So if your hospital doesn't work, check out if your orderlies are configured. Maybe it helps. I haven't proven this yet, but I felt like it's worth mentioning. The farming jobs are super obvious. I don't need to explain what a butcher or a soap maker does. Here, this part here, farming, those are the people that plant and harvest, pretty simply said. Plant gatherers are the people that forage stuff above ground. I just wanted to say that because I found that pretty confusing in the first glance. All the other jobs here, well, I think they go without saying. Fishing also explains itself pretty decently. The metalsmithing is a little bit more obscure again. Furnace operators are melting bars, alloys, and making coke and the like. Weaponsmiths and armorers are pretty clear. Blacksmiths are the people that make furniture and the like out of metal, and metal crafts are the people that make finer crafts out of metal. So jugs, goblets, toys, and decorations like studding with metal falls into the metal crafters thing. If you have trouble separating these, just assign this to one particular kind of dwarf. You won't go too wrong with that. Gem cutting and gem setting is pretty obvious. And at the crafts bench, well, every job explains itself pretty decently. Strand extraction is maybe a little bit more esoteric. It's basically the people that make thread out of plant fibers. That's that. Also, they are the people that process candy one day, but that's a different thing that I don't want to spoil it. So let's get back to that. I was an accidental right click. Engineering. Siege engineers, they do make the siege weapons. Siege operators, well, I guess you can name it. Mechanics, they do operate the mechanics workshop, and pump operators, well, they do operate the pumps. All the other jobs down here, who holds what, is really self-explanatory. Worth mentioning, everything from down here does not form a job. No dwarf will ever be a hauler, no matter how much he holds. There's also no skill level associated with hauling or all the other things. So let's talk about the skill levels, shall we? So if we click into our people here, everybody seems to have skill levels in pretty much everything. Skill levels are ranging from a level of 1 to 15, where dabbling is 0 actually, on a way to 1, which is novice. Level 15 is legendary, and everything in between, well, go check out the Wikipedia if you want to know which term stands for which level. But in a nutshell, the skill level grows when your dwarves does the job, and the higher the skill level, the better they get at doing this job. But the fun lies in the fact that the skill level impacts differently for each and every job, because otherwise it would be boring, wouldn't it? So before we go too deep into that, I want to cover one thing real quick. Almost every job has one bonus for a higher skill level, and that's improved speed. Practically every job gets faster if you increase your skill level in that, so I'm not going to mention that in particular. I'm going to cover now the jobs that behave a little bit oddly, and another rule is to be said: if the outcome of a product can have quality, a higher skill level does increase the quality. More practically said, a carpenter of legendary skill will produce more high quality furniture. A blacksmith of legendary skill will produce more quality, and so on. You get the idea. Whatever quality does matter, a high skill level increases the chance of producing something of high quality. That's also true for pretty much every job that has a quality involved. But a few of those are a little bit different. So let's go over those who are different. Stone engraving ain't that much different, but it's worth mentioning that the quality of the engravings is influencing the value of the engravings. So if you have a legendary engraver, you have much more valuable rooms than if you have an army of dabbling engravers pumping out mediocre engravings. Animal training is worth mentioning because it influences the quality of the training. So a highly skilled animal trainer will train your animals faster and more effectively. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but I wanted to mention it. And the other skills here, well, animal care is right now not even trainable because feeding animals doesn't train your animal care. So it's a totally neglectable job. Trapping and small animal dissection don't play too much of a big role here either, as of yet. In the healthcare, diagnosis is totally important because the higher the diagnosis level, the higher the chance to do a successful diagnosis. So really important because everything that's not diagnosed cannot be treated. So really important job. Surgery, a talented surgeon does do less damage. That's pretty important to note. And all the other jobs, well, there's nothing out of the ordinary there. The farming here is worth explaining as well, because a farmer who's called a planter will increase the yield of the crops. The higher the level of the planter, the higher the yield of the crop. Worth mentioning here is that the standard standing order here says that everybody is allowed to harvest. Harvesting plants, though, gives you a skill level in farming, or increases your skill level in farming. So I highly recommend you to let only your farmers do the harvesting as well, so they learn faster to be a good planter, which makes it so much easier to sustain your fortress. Now, all the other jobs, well, you just get faster and faster with these. There's not much explanation behind these until we hit plant gathering, where I can say again, a better a higher skill level here yields more plants from the forage, so it's totally worth specializing the people for this job as well. All the other things are just speed increases. It humored me a bit when I checked out what a gelding skill level increase does. It reduces the amount of injury done during the process of gelding. So now you know. Fishing increases the yield, therefore also a very useful job. And furnace operating makes faster. It does not impact any outcome of the bars. And here, well, weaponsmithing and armoring goes without saying. Decoration jobs can also have a quality. So all of these, the higher the level, the higher the quality, the higher the value. So specialization is totally worth it. In the crafts section, it's pretty similar, except for a couple of jobs. All these here, if there's a quality involved, it's worth it. Even the glass making, because that's also involving the glass crafts. But strand extraction, well, it does make you faster, sure, but paper making and book binding so far, nobody knows what kind of, how much impact they have. According to the Wikipedia, it's not even clear if they have any impact as of yet, so it's not worth specializing anybody into that job. Engineering, I wanted to mention that the siege engineering is pretty clear, higher quality weapons. Siege operating does increase the accuracy as well while the people are operating, so you really should have always the same people at your ballistas. Mechanics increases the quality of the mechanisms. In case you didn't know, traps get more powerful if they have high quality mechanisms, so it's totally worth it. Pump operating, nope, it doesn't do anything except for training your dwarves. And now, in the last part of this video, I want to talk about a few things that are a little bit more obscure, but really worth knowing. So every dwarf of yours has personality. Preferences are influencing your work, believe it or not. But if you have a dwarf whose preferences are, for example, breastplates, he's going to make better breastplates on average than anybody else. Basically, your preference gives you a bonus for the task. So here, this guy here has a preference for toy hammers and figurines and mail shirts. So if you'd let this dwarf do mail shirts, they would be of a better quality. So that's a pretty interesting thing to know. And it really amused me. Also worth mentioning, every job increases the attributes of your dwarfs. So if you didn't know, in the health and description tab, you have here, these green colored lines are, or red colored lines are the outcome of your attributes. Every job trains certain attributes. Here, military dwarfs, these things, this dwarf has only become like this due to the job. So I don't want to dive too deep because attributes is a pretty complex system in its own, but in a nutshell, the better you are in these attributes, the faster you walk, the better you dodge, and all those things. So TLDR, the jobs usually train the attributes that are required for the job. So if the job requires a lot of physical labor, you usually get stronger. It's like most things in Dwarf Fortress, common sense, and therefore I just wanted to mention that your dwarfs will also grow brawny and strong if they smith all day, and all those things. You can use that to specialize your dwarfs. And that's ending this video. I thank you for watching. I hope you found that helpful. Leave me your comments down below if you have any questions or anything you might want to add. I'd be super happy. Also, leave a thumbs up on that video if you enjoyed to make it more visible for everybody else. And consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. There's daily content coming up from my side, and chances are you like the rest of the stuff as well. I also put a playlist link down there leading to all the other Dwarf Fortress tutorials of mine, so if you want to check out the playlist, I'd be very happy. So, have a wonderful day, and see you soon.